YouTube audio ads are the new and refreshing kind of ad formats that advertisers can use to build brand awareness and also grow into a new audience space. Now, how do these adverts work? Well, they work typically like your normal video adverts, except the main characteristic is the audio, and this tends to be a voiceover. Now, you can't just have this audio on YouTube as there'll be nowhere to place it. So they tend to have either a static image or an animation on top of that to be able to place onto YouTube. But that's the main sort of thing that you can expect from YouTube audio ads. And the reason why YouTube are trying to promote people using these kind of adverts is because they're more cost effective, but you're still able to track your metrics and look at your analytics to see how well your advert is performing.
So eligibility when it comes to using YouTube's audio ads is something that's really important to keep note of, as there are some verticals that are currently being barred from working within their audio ad structure. The ones to note being that I've read up on a report are healthcare and medicine, gambling, alcohol, and a few other sensitive verticals. I imagine things like cannabis and such like that, which are obviously, there's a bit of a fractured sort of relationship between, the legality of it, but also the expanding marketplace for it. Those sorts of areas will probably most likely not be eligible for audio ads. And it's also important to note that despite it being in a global open beta, that Google requires you to run 2 brand lift surveys before being eligible to apply. So it's important for brands to note that they must sort of marry up and they must have some sort of a YouTube strategy and be implementing YouTube into their wider marketing mix in order to sort of reap the benefits that they can make on the platform. And especially with audio ads being potentially a complete game changer in the nature of advertising, especially on a platform as visual as YouTube, it's resounding the fact that becoming eligible and making sure that you're tying up all of those markers is just such an important thing to do.
So you've just heard all about YouTube audio ads, which is really, really interesting. So here's some key tips if you're going to produce some audio ads. Really think about the tone and intonation in the way that you say things. You might use a little bit of speed, slow down a little bit, all those kind of things think about. Also think about your word count. Google suggests around about 40 words. Now, you've only got 15 seconds, so you need to think carefully about how you get those in, particularly if you've got to think about the intonation and the tone as well. You've also got to bear in mind you've got to get your call to action in, so you need to make sure that you leave plenty of space. So often when we're doing ads, we always do a word count, we always do recordings ourselves, saying it out loud rather than reading, because you get a different kind of perspective. Now, you do have an image or a tiny little bit of animation to back up what you're saying there, but you've got to rely on the words having real empathy and, really getting the message across. Be creative, don't be boring, really try and grab people's attention, but in a relevant way. And then finally, I suppose, don't forget that you've got to consider keeping the audience really simple. Again, Google's advising at the moment, with all this being in sort of like test phase, just stick to one audience per campaign to make it really simple. So you can start to get some really good data back and start to see what the learnings are. So yeah, audio is really interesting. There's probably lots of other things that you can consider whilst you're doing it. But they're the key takeouts that you need to consider with the YouTube audio.